Hey Rockstars, I'm JB, expert salesperson and master presenter.
I'm the doctor, psychologist, and behavioral expert.
This is the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab podcast.
We're high-performance coaches that help service-based professionals and entrepreneurs take their skills to the next level.
70% of entrepreneurs fail, which is why every week we have real talk with real entrepreneurs to help ensure you are not one of them.
We're also the inventors of the Be Rich mindset,
where we rise to mastery,
inspire greatness,
celebrate knowledge,
and help others along the way.
So join us in the lab.
And now, on to the show.
Welcome back to the lab. I'm JB.
I'm the doctor.
If you're joining us for the first time, welcome to the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab, where we have real talk with real professionals every single week. We are super stoked you joined us and really excited for you to have a fantastic experience and come back and back again. I know some of you joining us today are people who have listened before. You love the pain. We don't know why, but you love being here. So we appreciate you. We're grateful for you. If you're checking us out for the first time at the end of the episode, you like what you hear, give us a like, subscribe, follow, 5-star review. It drives us. It helps us keep doing this. And if you're a repeat listener and you haven't done that, get your ass over there and do it, please, for us.
Slackers.
I even said please, right? No, I asked nicely.
Slackers, if you haven't done it yet.
I don't know if my meditation's working, Doc. I'm trying to get better and better with it to chill out, but sometimes, man, get a little fired up.
How many minutes have you made it to now?
Brace yourself. I'm hardcore. I'm at 7.
Ooh,
that's
pretty good.
And I gotta say, out of that 7, like probably for a solid 5.5, I am distracted and not probably doing what I should be doing. But they tell you, it's okay. It's just recognize when you're off and recenter, and it's supposed to help.
Yeah, I meditate between like 6 and 8 hours every night.
You don't get that much sleep. I know you better than that, man.
That's how I get my focus, right? That's how I know to shut off the brain, to take a nap.
Hey, dude, any of your listeners out there, if you haven't tried meditation, I encourage it. I think it's made it a lot easier for me to let go of shit and be a lot more calm and a little more level-headed, which in sales is always a good trait to develop. So it's been good for me.
And just for all those listeners that have been hearing this is JB after meditating and calm. Could you imagine what I deal with before that?
Yeah, we'll be nice. They don't need to hear that. So hey man, I'm pretty stoked, Doc. We got a great guest joining us today. We got Ryan Sullivan of Podcast Principles. Ryan and I connected online. We saw what each other were doing. We had a conversation, thought he would be a great guest to bring into our listeners, especially those of you that are content creators. Ryan, Sully, what's up, man?
Sully.
What is happening, guys? I'm happy to be here. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's awesome.
Yeah, for sure, dude. It's awesome to see you and have you on the show. So appreciate you carving out the time. And just for the benefit of our listeners, if you could kind of share who you are, what you do, and give us a little perspective.
Yeah, sure thing. So yeah, I always, I've been saying I'm a rapper, producer, DJ, and podcaster. It just depends kind of on the day or the week, which one of those I'm doing at any given time, but some more than others for sure. And, kind of over these past few years, I guess I could go back, but I originally started releasing music like 5 years ago, and that kind of got me on this audio and music journey. And from there, I started a podcast as well. And it was a personal podcast, kind of like a passion project, just messing around, having conversations with people, nothing narrative, kind of similar to your style too, very conversational, and started doing it by myself. Then I had guests. I met somebody who made 6 figures on the stock market at like 21 years old in my college class. I was like, all right, I got to have this guy on the podcast. From there, I think we're at episode like 63 or 64 when it comes to guests. So been doing that podcast for 3 years, while also making and releasing music. And throughout college, I just kept going and kept releasing podcasts, stopped a couple of times, started again a couple of times. Now we're at, I think, like 32 weeks in a row or something, and super dedicated to that. And so on the podcast side as well, I began editing. I was editing my own podcast. Then I decided to basically try to edit them for other people. I was a mechanic for 5 years. I worked on cars. That was my job while I was in college and high school. And I loved it, but I just found my passion in music and podcasts. So I started freelancing and I made like $80 in 2 months. And then I was like, all right, that sounds good. I think I can do this. And that seemed feasible. And from there, yeah, I just kept making podcasts, creating them for other people, and, kind of led to this journey of starting a company around creating podcasts for people, transitioning from the editor to the person that really is really there for you to bring you through the journey of launching your own podcast, rather than me being behind the scenes and doing the editing. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Left a lot of things out in there just because it would take a while to go through the trajectory, and I definitely can go there too. But where I'm at now, I run Podcast Principles. We have a core team of 3 or 4 people that are really here to build the company, and then we have a team of freelancers as well to do all the podcast production. So we do a podcast launch business. So somebody comes to us from start to finish, we're there to launch your podcast. So that's what we've been working on now, really hard for the last 6 months to a year, as far as building the business. Had the idea in March 2020. And so we've really been working on it since then. But now it's been 50, 60 hours a week, depending on the week for me now, and really just trying to grow that. So, I mean, that's where I'm at. That's what I'm working on.
And that's a lot of hours per week. So you're still pursuing the music and the rap and the production on that side of things as well?
Yeah. So it kind of just depends, I guess, time wise. Sometimes I have a lot more time to work on the business, and other times I really, what I've done now is tried to get super focused with time management. And like what you were talking about with meditation, I've been meditating for 4 years. I do it 20 minutes every single day.
Damn.
5 or 6 days a week. And so that's been very important for me, because I'm trying to I try to wake up, meditate, then I do music for an hour, then I edit for some of the day / run and grow the business, manage the team for the other half of the day. And then at night, I edit my podcast, work on more music. And then I'm a DJ on the weekends too. So I kind of just try to be super structured with the time management, so I can kind of continue to pursue all these things. And obviously the business has taken over. I thought that I was going to blow, every artist thinks that they're the best and that they're going to blow up in 2 years and be the next Drake or whatever you want to say. And obviously it's realistic to an extent. Like, I know that the music's going to go and do its own thing, and I have a plan for it, but this podcast stuff, I've really dedicated my life to that. So that's been taking up most of my time recently.
Well, we talk about this all the time, Sully, the foundation, right? Where you're coming from with the music and building that out and everything. It's like the perfect experience and platform to bring into the podcasting world, right? I mean, so much of that can translate over to what you're doing in this business today. It's great to pursue the passion, and hats off to you, man. I hope it does blow up and become everything you want it to be. But the fact that you're able to build a business outside of that, and that's kind of, trying to hit a home run maybe. And I'm not trying to call it what it isn't, but this is something where right now you can take some of that and implement it in and really have a successful business. Pretty cool to see. It really pretty neat. It sounds to me kind of like your morning's a little ritualized, almost like you're really taking that pretty seriously, huh?
Yeah, the morning's definitely ritualized. It worked for me. Like, I've tried even throughout. I think so. I'll back it up a little bit. Right after high school, I graduated high school in 2016. After that, I went to community college, and everybody that I knew that I was best friends with went away to college. It felt like except me, and it was except me and maybe a couple of my other friends, right? But at that time, I just didn't feel like I had any direction. I felt like everybody was gone. I didn't have anybody that I was close to. I didn't have a girlfriend or anything, and it was just me. And I spent a year just kind of doing whatever. And as you have probably been through as well, you get into destructive behaviors. I come from a small town, right? Not a lot of people get out. Been to too many funerals. I won't go down that side of things, but that's kind of like the track. You just get your job, and then you do what you do. You got the job. All right, good. That's what you're going to do for the rest of your life. Right. And so I just kind of started getting into self-development, self-improvement. I was watching Joe Rogan for years at that time. He starts having guests like Sam Harris and these people that are like masterminds, doctors, people who, do meditation, people who have written books. And I started self-educating, which I never really did before. And so that kind of brought me down the path of trying new things to try to optimize my life, I guess, because it was just me. Once again, I'm waking up every single day. I'm not hanging out with people. I'm going to community college. Everybody you talk to, they're an hour away. Like you almost can't build new friendships. So at that point I was like, let me just try new things. So meditation, did it on and off. And now I've been super consistent for the last like maybe 2.5 years, but tried everything, cold showers, working out at 6 o'clock in the morning, any jumping rope every single day, like all these weird, like little self-improvement things. But the morning routine has been super beneficial. If I don't do it, I'm like a mess for sure.
Hearing that one size doesn't fit all, and you have to kind of experiment to find out what your path is and which one really matches you.
Yeah.
Not something we've ever talked about on here.
Yeah. Trying new things for sure. Yeah. I think people, and I actually listened to a podcast about this the other day. They were like, the way that meditation has been framed, it almost hasn't been beneficial for people because they think that they have to do it to like achieve mindfulness or something. Whereas you don't. It could be yoga, it could be exercise, it could be walking, it could be running. I think meditation's on this like pedestal, and just because it works for somebody or somebody you listen to, people think that it's going to work for you or it's going to be benefit, which it totally could. But I think it kind of aggrandized it a little bit. And it kind of took the emphasis off of other things. People are like, yeah, exercise, obviously, that's just implied. But exercise, a certain type of exercise could be your thing, but people might think that, you just go to the gym and you just go through the motions and then that's it. Whereas if you just tried yoga or you tried different ways of doing things, you might find something that works a lot better for you. So yeah, I think the self-experimentation is huge, but it's just really hard. I mean, even for me, like I couldn't stick to 90% of the things that I tried. The things that I did stick to, I continued with. But yeah, the experimentation, people just might try meditation for 10 days, do it for, like you said, you're at 7 minutes. That's great. Like that's where I started with 5 minutes. They might do it for 10 days and be like, they might stop, and then they might not even try anything else after that, when there might be, you might try 3 more things, and then that third or fourth thing is the one that really sticks with you, So yeah, I'm definitely in that mindset.
Yeah, and that's what we go back to a lot, is that one size doesn't fit all, because you have to figure out what works for you. Trying to fit someone else's schedule and their ideas of what they should do. That's some of the challenges with a lot of the self-help books is, you read it and think you're supposed to, like, it's a gospel. I'm supposed to follow it exactly. You're not. You're supposed to take some tools from these things and then adjust it to how it best fits you. And, like morning routines, the miracle morning, you hear things like that. I'm not waking up at 5 o'clock. That's JB's thing. I'm not doing that. That's not my thing. I get more productive at night because that's my lifestyle. That's what I'm accustomed to. And that's where I know my strengths lie. So if we try to fit into other people's idea of what they do and think it has to match 100%, that's where we run into those things like you were just saying.
100%. Yeah, you got to try it. And yeah, don't assume like you got it. Yeah, I mean, and there's so many books. I think the best ones are like the habit books, because it's like super general. And I love like this, other self-improvement books, or like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. That's a pretty good one. Mark Manson, he does great work. But yeah, the more like general ones are nice, because then you kind of learn how to build a habit. Not saying I'm some like expert in habits, but then you can apply any of those things.
Don't worry, I am. So we got you covered.
That's good. See, we have somebody on the show who knows.
he's like literally an expert in habits. I think that's what they gave him a doctorate in or something.
That's the dynamic of the show, right? That's why it works.
Habits are just behaviors, and everything we do is a behavior. So it's just a matter of learning how to create those behaviors and control them and keep them going.
In a sense, we're all kind of experts in habits. We're just maybe not too aware of how to change them or not,
or build them. Yeah, that's super true. Yeah, that's a good point.
That's interesting, man. Well, it sounds like, you're pretty open, and, the doc always likes to say people are on a spectrum. It's never black and white. We can be more than one thing at one time, but we fit onto a spectrum. And yeah, I think there's a lot to be said when you're looking at success in business and in life about being open to the experiment. The more rigid you are, and there's a lot of sensationalism around rigidity too, right? And structure, too much structure. And you see that a lot. And it's almost on the same pedestal that meditation can be on. It's like, oh my God, you got to be disciplined. People have built huge businesses over this. Jocko Willings, great example, right? Ex-Navy SEAL. Oh my God, it's all discipline. It's boom, boom, boom. And if it's not done and you're not getting the results you want, it's lack of discipline, right? You're not holding yourself accountable. And it's like, man, there needs to be a little bit of flexibility in life from my perspective. And I think being open to figuring out what works best for you is a big part of that.
Yeah. And I love Jocko. I love his work. I don't listen. I tried to listen to his podcast. I'm like, what are they talking about? They're talking about like military, like strategies, like what, no, you kind of have to maybe be in that world. I'm actually launching a podcast for an Army Ranger right now. And just the way that he goes about anything is like way different to me. It's like, I love structure. I love all that, but that's a whole different world. So you're right. I think like the balance of having, the Jockos, but maybe then having like a meditation, teacher who you really, I follow Tara Brach. I really love her. So I love her guided meditations. And it's like, you might take a little bit from having a little flexibility. It's like, yeah, I don't do my morning routine every single day. I don't, 5 days a week, 6, but not 7.
Good.
So, but yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. For some reason in my head, I'm like trying to picture Jocko now meditating, and like I'm really struggling.
Just him trying so hard to like do it.
I could just see him like vibrating with like energy and violence.
Oh my God. It's too good, man.
It's something else, man. So talk to me a little bit like about the experience you've had working with people on the podcast side of things. There's a lot of people out there today. You look at the statistics around podcasts, and somebody's reminded me very recently that I love statistics. But the average person that launches a podcast, it lasts like 7 episodes or something, maybe. But there's this vast growing number of podcasts, 4+ million podcasts or something, active podcasts right now. So big market to go into. A lot of people interested in looking at it. And every time when I'm out and about, I tell people we've got a podcast, people are like, wow, you too. So it's getting out there. What's your experience been?
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really know that I was going to do them for other people. I didn't realize that podcasting there was like skills involved in it. I just thought, because I started by putting one webcam and then buying 2 USB microphones and then just sitting and talking, and then as I went forward, I realized that podcasting is also a tool for branding and business and growth and content. And then I just watched a video the other day, a guy making $1 million a year off just off the podcast. Right. And so, wow. Yeah. And that's crazy. So yeah, I think over the past few years, the podcasting has changed for me as I've done different podcasts. Luckily I got to work with a mentalist. We got to work with celebrities. That was a lot of fun. Actors and NFL players and things like that. And so then that was one angle. That podcast failed. So yeah. So it's just, and it was because of a bunch of different reasons, marketing and budget and not really understanding how to utilize the people who were on it. So there's so many different aspects to it. And there's a million ways to waste your time and your money and your resources. So doing it effectively, I've been on a mission to try to figure out how to do it effectively for you. So for whatever your goal is, I even bought podcastpsychology.com because I plan on launching a platform about the psychology behind podcasting. And obviously not the doctor. I'm not I don't understand the real psychology, but just, that type of a lens. I think there's so much to it, and there's so many ways and so many ways you can use it or lose it, right? Like you said, people will stop. That's why I'm not launching a podcast if we're not doing 12 episodes or more, because the hump is that 8 episodes. I mean, I've done over 100 interviews, even my podcast, over 60 episodes, but there was times when I stopped. Even in COVID, I stopped. Why did I stop? I could have easily done Zoom. I have an in-person podcast, but I could have easily done Zoom. So I've even experienced the things that make people stop. So I've really been on the mission to, first of all, figure out how to use podcasts for whatever that person's goal is. I've been stumped before. People come to me, they're like, I have this industry niche podcast. I had one that it was about rental companies, like people who rent machines. Like that was the podcast. That's what it was about. And it was so niche that like, I didn't even have an answer for this guy of how he can frame it to like make money with it. Right. So I love the challenges of trying to figure out how podcasting can work and then trying to figure out how to actually make that a reality. So that's you know, on the outside, yeah, it's podcast launches. That's really what I do. But I love the intricacies and trying to use podcasts for a certain purpose.
Sounds like you might need a psychologist on retainer coming up. So let me know.
Doc, when we have some runway, we're going to bring you in. That's
you know, it's a funny thing. I'm supposed to be like the sales guru of the freaking podcast, and him over here selling himself right now. I hope you read that waiver real careful before you sign that contract. So
no, I treated it like everything else I've ever signed. I just did this, and then I didn't even treated it like the Facebook terms of service, right?
Some things doesn't need to be sold.
It's just exactly sells itself.
Exactly.
Right, JB?
Right. Hey, you know, the right buyers, the right audience, it sure as hell does.
True.
Dude, I love that you got a vision. You got the domain already that you're going to build out in the future, and you're kind of been building out this process. In your mind, is there a big miss you see more often than not, having done a bunch of launches with people and really gotten these live and seeing some failures? Because it blows my mind, man. Can I just say, you have tons of celebrities, NFL players, athletes. Like how the F do you fail?
I know, it's crazy. Well, in that case, I'll say it was marketing.
Yeah.
What they did was I'm a production company. That's what I do. I do not do any marketing. I have strategic partners, people who are expert marketers who will come in. I'm an audio nerd. I'm an audio producer. That's what I do. Audio engineer, whatever you want to call it. So that's my skill set. You bring us in. That's what we do best, right? Your graphics, your audio, your video, stuff like that. So this one in particular, yeah, they just didn't have the marketing down and they didn't have the content down. But I forget the initial question before that.
I forgot it too. It's all right. Now, I just the process. If there's something that you've seen more people kind of struggle with than not.
Yeah, I would say this is like all obvious. A lot of these, even with this, it's simple. It's really clarity on the goal and clarity on the outcome. You know, when they go to us, they're like, "Are you concerned about the plays?" It's like, I edit the audio. I mean, I don't have anything to do with the plays. You know, I really do. You know, make that clear in the beginning. You know, so it's about clarity on the goals and consistency. And like I said, I stopped my podcast too. You know what happened? I had 0 plays after I stopped. That's, you know, so I think that's just what happened, right? Shocking. And I think people also have, it's the clarity on the goals, consistency, and then which relates to the goals is the expectations. If you think on episode 12, you're going to be Joe Rogan level, that's just insane. And you might just have crazy goals, but maybe if you have $100,000 a month to spend on marketing or something, then maybe you can get to that level fast. I think their goals don't align with what they're actually doing. And they have this weird, I come from music. Know your music. I know the most talented people in the world who have not even released a song, right? They're not famous. They don't have fans because they don't do, you could have all the talent in the world and not release music and nobody will know who you are. You'll never make it, you know? So, and I know people who are way less talented who are making a living off of Spotify, you know, just from their plays. So I think it's just this misalignment, I think is really, and that's business, right? Like, you know, JB, it's like, it's the same. You have to treat these podcasts like a business. Like if you don't treat it like a business, even if you don't make money from it to start, then you're going to fail because your goals were misaligned with your actions. So I think that's the big thing that happens with people with podcasts a lot of the times. Yeah.
Dude, and so applicable, not just to podcast, to everything for a professional or an entrepreneur. Without a real clear understanding of what you want to accomplish, you're never going to get anywhere. I mean, you're just never going to take the steps you need to take to accomplish something. And I say that knowing that sometimes our goals change, right? As business people, you know, and even utilizing a platform like a podcast, you know, your goal for the podcast can change, or it can be more than one thing. And I look at what we utilize our podcast for, and it's certainly, you know, it's to drive great conversations, to have an impact in people's lives, but it's also to create content. It is what we drive. When you look at the Entrepreneur Mastery Lab private Facebook group that we've developed, you know, we drive our weekly themes built around the conversations we have in this podcast. So this is the genesis of all the content creation we do on a weekly basis. And it is designed and implemented exactly to do that. The conversations we have are meant to drive that. And it's incredibly successful for that. Now, if I turned around and said, wow, is this podcast that we've developed, is it to drive revenue? It probably a pretty big failure if I looked at it that way, because we're really not driving revenue with the podcast, but that's not necessarily our priority or our goal with the podcast at this point in time. Not saying it can't and won't happen, but it's not necessarily where we want the podcast to be today. And I think maybe even more importantly, beyond clarity, the second thing you said there, consistency, dude, you know what? Big believer, anything works given consistency. Sometimes
or doesn't work. Like you'll find out if it's going to, but you got to be consistent.
Exactly right. And more often than not, it's where do I like to spend my energy? Like where can I put my effort in and I can keep coming back? Right. That's a hard thing for some people with a podcast, I'm sure, man, it's tough to put your energy into it every single week. And if that's a big struggle, maybe the podcast isn't the best approach for you. And that's okay.
Yeah, that's what I find too. Some people, now we started doing mock interviews for everybody we work with, just because somebody that we're working with now suggested it. And I just did it with them. And that was I don't know how I never thought of that before. And you start to realize that some people, they just step right into it and they're just good, man. Like, that they'll never run out of questions. Right. And then there's other people who's like, your personality might not be for this podcast. Maybe it's more for a narrative podcast, maybe not a conversational show. So yeah. And it really is hard. There's times, you work the whole day, work out, I do my podcast because I have a producer that helps me. Like I said, I do them in person. A lot of them are local. People are coming at 7:00 at night on a weeknight. And I got to be ready to go for an hour and a half, and keep asking questions and make sure I'm hydrated and make sure I took my vitamins today and that I got my exercise and all that stuff. So yeah. And then to do that on a weekly basis, 52 weeks a year. And I know people who do 3 in a day, I'll do 1 or 2, maybe 3 a week, 3 interviews when I'm interviewing. That's a lot for me in a week. And then I'm editing, I'm doing the audio. Luckily, I don't do any of the other stuff. I do the show notes and the audio, but yeah, even that's a lot. You got to think, and also having them come to my house. So that takes time. And then we hang out for a little after and I don't want to kick them out of your house. Right. So, add that whole component too. And yeah, like the energy though is so important. And it's trying to develop, meditation, exercise, whatever, trying to develop those ways to keep the energy up. But yeah, on that off day when you're just off and you're tired and you've still got to do it, that's when you start to question what's going on,
Right on, man. Hey, let's take a step back for a second for a message from our sponsors, and we'll jump right back into this conversation.
Hey, y'all. It's the doctor from JB and the Doctor. Just wanted to talk quickly about our 2-on-1 coaching service that we offer, as well as our group coaching program that's also available. As high-performance coaches for service-based professionals and entrepreneurs, we are hyper-focused on improving your presentation and positioning, powering up your productivity, and supercharging your sales. As we all know, people, we're just different, and one size does not fit all. So it's important to work with those that understand this and can tailor their program and training specific to your needs. And that is exactly what we do here at JB and the Doctor. With our Mastery with Science system and approach, we provide both the how and the why, proven by experience and backed by science. So to take advantage of this truly unique approach with the expertise of 2 coaches, providing you with the very best of self and business coaching, just check out our website at jbandthedoctor.com/services for more information or to schedule an exploratory phone call. That's jbandthedoctor.com/services.
All right. So I got to say, it's funny having this conversation with you, man. It kind of feels a little meta. We're talking about podcasts within a podcast and I'm digging it.
That's my life. So yeah, we need them sound effects.
Yeah. We really do. And, the other thing that kind of strikes me as funny, dude, is, in my head, if I'm listening in, and this is, I'm sure my interpretation, but like I'm listening in and I'm like, okay, this guy's into music. He's a rapper. The last thing I would expect is like, I got to take my vitamins. I got to hydrate. I got to do this. I got to do that. Right. It's just kind of funny. It goes to show, just in our heads, we have this box of what people should be in, right? And then the reality is oftentimes so very different. A good lesson to take in that in general from life.
Well, brother, you got to train well, you got to eat your vitamins and say your prayers.
That was my very bad Hulk Hogan.
Yeah. All right, brother, take your vitamin. Yeah, he always says take your vitamins. Remember, he always said that.
and he wound up selling vitamins just for that reason.
That is awesome.
50 Cent made $100 million off water, man, vitamin water. So hey, there you go.
Hey,
I'm still waiting
wasn't a smart dude.
I'm still waiting for my sponsorship from Orange. Beep. You'll get the rest of that title if you sponsor us.
That's how you get them, the doc. That's how you get them.
Right? You just loop them in. You don't give them a choice. You brought something up, the energy, and we were talking about it. And, for our listeners out there, probably don't realize we bulk record. So we, throughout the day, we'll do 4 or 5 recordings, and we'll do 4 or 5 hours. We don't do the longest podcast in the world, and that's intentional. I don't think I could do an hour and a half, 4 or 5 times over the course of the day. That would just be outrageous. The doc would not be able to put up with me. I'd have no voice and he'd still be fresh. I mean, but it does take energy, man. It absolutely does. And it's one of the nice things. And we were talking about this before we really came into the room here and started talking to our listeners, having a co-host and being able to shift gears a little bit and have somebody come in and, take over if you're flailing, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I love that model. I've never really done it. I've been a co-host on a podcast that wasn't mine, but yeah, I love that model. And I think it's definitely hard because you think you guys know, like you know each other so well. So you're not a clashing. I feel like your personalities really fit together. It's not, if you have clashing personalities, you've probably seen some of these podcasts with 3, 4, 5 different people or 3 consistent co-hosts, and it's like, sometimes you're just clashing. Yeah. That's something that I really haven't gotten into. It's a lot of like conversational one-on-ones in my experience that just from my podcast experience. So yeah, have you guys done podcasts without each other, or?
I'm not used to being asked questions on my own podcast. I got to take a step back here for a second. Holy shit.
It's all good.
We have. So, we both run separate businesses outside of JB and the Doctor and outside of Mastery with Science. So we have our separate business models. And so I've certainly been invited on for a number of podcasts in my other business and as, a partner and co-founder of JB and the Doctor. So, however, I have not run a podcast on my own. And I don't know that I'd want to. I've always liked, and it's not just held to the podcast. I like working alongside somebody. I like the ability to be more than I am just on my own. And I really feel like having a co-host really helps me with that. And also I get free therapy. I don't know if you know this. He can't provide therapy to all of you on the podcast, but he sure as hell has been working on me a lot.
It's for my own sanity.
Because he's around you so much and he has to give you the therapy.
Exactly. It's the only way I will survive. Same thing. I've done some podcasts, but I think some of the things that we bring is the podcast is really just an extension of what we do, right? So this is just another one of our platforms. And what makes us so special, what we think at least, I don't know if anyone else agrees with us, but what we think so special about us is we do have the best of both worlds, right? We have 2 different experiences that work well together in the same area, and we're able to bring in knowledge, the how, the why, in ways that other people can't. You talked about reading self-help books. They're usually, it's one side or the other, right? They're either teaching from what they've learned and then they're quoting maybe a therapist or a psychologist, or they're a therapist and then they're quoting from one from sales. Here you get both of that, right? You don't have to quote someone else because you have access to the 2 people that know what they're doing in that world. So that's kind of how I look at it. This is just an extension of what we do day to day.
I think that's really important because not something that I even thought about was you actually don't have to do it alone. Like if you're going to create content, create a podcast, even create a brand, it's very intimidating to have to make even one piece of content a day. I find that hard, even myself, if I'm going to make it. Like, all right, I want to do a video every day. And then you try to do a video every day. It's like, all right, I'll do a video and then some text posts. The videos every day is too much. And then I'll do 1 video, 2 videos a week, and then 1 a week. So I think that's a good lesson and like decent advice of you can have somebody else with you and kind of, even if it is just to split the responsibilities, but I think it's way more than that. I think to create a brand with 2 people. And as you kind of alluded to a little bit, JB, like it's not like you have 2 people and now you're at 200%. It's kind of like it's exponential. right? Like, as you know, a person could never do what a business can do because of the multiples, because so many people together can, 5 times, 10 times, it just goes on from there. That's really powerful.
And you know what you don't know, right? It's finding that lane, staying in your lane and knowing what you know the best, and bringing in the people that know what they know the best, and providing that quality.
Yeah.
Well, that's a lesson we have all the time, Doc, right? It's we can do a lot. We're all capable of doing a lot. And you're a solopreneur, an entrepreneur. Even if you run a larger business, you wear a lot of hats. You obviously wear a lot of hats, but you've got certain skill sets, and you speak to certain people better than, for me, who I speak to is going to be wildly different than who the Doc speaks to, right? We are opposites in a lot of ways, which makes us a really good balance, because you know what? My audience is not going to necessarily be his audience. There's going to be things I say where people are like, that's some bullshit, and who the hell is this guy? And then they're going to hear something he says, and they go, wow, yeah, that's incredibly insightful. Meanwhile, I'm over here giving him the WTF face. So that stuff really can play to people's benefit. And it brings home a point, I think, that's always good for our listeners to take on, whether or not you're in a partnership or solo. There are people that are better than you at a lot of things. And there's a time and a place where you should probably be outsourcing and delegating some of that, because you can't be the best at everything, nor should you try. You'll just burn yourself out.
100%. Yeah. Delegation, and for me in the last 6 months, that's been crucial.
Yeah, dude, I'm sure. Well, you're doing a lot. You only got so much time. I don't care how structured you are. You only got so much time in the day, man.
I know. My girlfriend's like, come on, we got to hang out. What's going on? I'm like, I just got to finish this one. So luckily she has a busy schedule too. So, it's balanced, but yeah, not even just the things I want to do. It's like that life, family, girlfriend, time for yourself, which is kind of non-existent. So then trying to fit those things into the day. Yeah. It's a lot for sure. But I think the main thing, and this is so cliche too, but what people say, I do really enjoy the things. Sometimes I hate editing my podcast, but then I go back to, I don't want to do it. All right. I really don't feel like editing this right now. I go back and start listening to it, and then I'm laughing, I'm laughing my ass off because the conversation was really funny. And I forgot that part of the conversation was funny. So now I'm rejuvenated again, So I do really enjoy it though. I love building this business. I love rapping, producing, performing, I love recording my own podcast. So that really does help. If you hate this stuff, then it makes it a lot harder, as you know.
Dude, can I put you on the spot?
For sure.
Dude, can you throw some bars out there for us?
I knew it. I knew you were gonna say that.
Of course I was gonna fucking say it, man. It's a given.
Make you howl.
Is it the first time? This might be the second time on a podcast somebody told me to do that. Do you want me to? I will. I would just say, go listen to my music, but
so I can do it. I'll give you an option here, right? Because I'm a nice guy. You can drop some bars if you want to. If you don't, give us a link at the very least in the show notes so people can listen in, because I want to kind of check out what you're doing there. I think it's pretty fucking cool.
All right, so, I say, yeah. No, what were you gonna say, Doc?
Well, you go ahead and decide, but I was going to give you another option because I'm not as nice. So you can drop the bars now. But instead of the link, I actually kind of want to see. I'm sure you mentioned Instagram and stuff that you're on there. So then you need to tag our Instagram so our listeners can actually see you performing. So that's additional.
I'll do it because I haven't done it in a long time. So we'll see if I still remember it. All right. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Call me the postman because I always deliver. I got the rhyme so cold, probably making you shiver. My mind unlocked 2 cones when it's take it a little. My brain cells are brittle, form a circle like skittle to get between like middle so I could kill with these riddles, but I still chill little.
Nice.
I messed up a couple times in there, but I haven't done that one in like 2 years.
You're fast.
My music isn't like that, but I need to impress people. So that's what I started rapping really fast because that's, kind of like that would get people's attention. First of all, I would tell people that I'm a rapper, which I don't do anymore. I usually just tell them I'm like a musician or something. Like, so I'll just maybe tell them I rap or I produce, but I'd be like, yeah, I'm a rapper. They'd be like, no, you're not. They'd just laugh and think I was kidding. So then I'd be at like a party or something, this is like in college. and then I'd rap really fast. So I'd rap faster than everybody else around. So then I'd be the best one. So then I would impress people. So that's kind of how that happened. But now listen to my music now, most of it's got those fast parts, but a lot of it's like a little bit more controlled, slow down. They would be like, "So, like, I love your music, but I have no idea what you're saying." So I'm like, okay, I got to slow her down.
That's very cool. And thank you. By the way, Doc, totally perfect segue. I'm just curious, there's some psychology behind that, like talking really fast, right? Why that people thinks that makes you better, right? Because, I'm the fastest rapper, so I must be the best rapper. Yeah, I feel like when you talk really fast, people assume, oh my God, you must really know what you're talking about.
And I talk fast too. So maybe it's fast. Yeah, I need to know this, Doc.
Well, you might not want to hear it.
I know it's not going to be good.
Actually,
I set myself up for this one.
It does depend on the situation, and I'm just sure JB is surprised that I said the word depends on that things. But it does depend on the situation. So generally, like in sales, in any kind of promotion, if someone's talking really fast, it's because they don't really want you focusing on the content. They just want you to hear a couple keywords and then not question it and just keep having to listen, so they don't have time to process it, right? Because so if that's why a lot of them you see that don't really say much, talk really fast about something. You just want to get you really excited because you're going to get, yeah. And then you're like, yes, whatever he just said is right. And generally the ones that have some more content and want to do it, they deliver and they slow it down and they're more deliberate when they're doing. And we didn't get to it yet, but we know you had an experience with Gary Vee. And if you even listen to him, he's a good way of pointing that. Like if he's saying something he's said a bunch of times, he's a little quicker with it, right? But if he's got something new and really wants to drive it home, he slows it down and becomes more deliberate when he's having that conversation, takes pauses. Obviously, he's not the only one that does that. A lot of us, I do the same. But that is part of why you see that. Now in rapping, obviously, it's going to be a little bit different, but especially in that kind of world that we're in, the promotion.
Wow. That just blew my mind. Thank you, Doc. I appreciate that. I've been wanting to know that for a long time. Like, I never even thought about the reason why.
Yeah, everything's deliberate if they're doing it right.
And this is why we have both of us. Nothing I said blew your mind. Dude says 5 words, mind blown over here. My God.
No, JB, I still love you, brother.
Thank you, man. I appreciate the pity love. All right.
We're just going to talk really fast for the rest of this interview.
He keeps me fresh, right? I gotta come in with the big things because he does the heavy lifting.
I see that.
So speaking of doing some lifting and helping out, heard that you might have something for our listeners.
I do. So I created this. It's called the Podcast Guesting Guide, how to use podcast guesting to grow your business. And it's not 100%, not to say that it's only for entrepreneurs or only to grow your business. I think it's a good resource if you want to just understand podcast guesting and then how to frame what you do in a way that works on a podcast. Because what I saw was, and like, listen, this is me as well. I love being on podcasts, but then the more things that you do, the more refined you want to be with the podcast that you're on, right? So I'd love to be on a podcast about, animals or something like that, but that's not my expertise. I might have a lot of fun, or a podcast about cars, right? I love cars, but it has nothing to do with my business. So maybe these days I have to be on more like maybe mindset or entrepreneur or content type of podcast, right? So what the guide does, it kind of breaks it down into 4 simple steps, starting with, first of all, what do I do that's the differentiator? Like, what's that thing that people work with me? They say, I love that you do that. And then how do you frame that to tell other people, to explain it without being like, I'm just really good at this. And then there's 2 other steps after that on like how to actually pitch podcasts, get booked. There's like a checklist. There's an actual pitch that I've sent to people. So it's the Podcast Guesting Guide, teaching you a little bit about podcast guesting if you haven't, explored the medium yet, or if you want to refine it a little bit.
Of course, you can get all that rest of that information that Sully teased so nicely for us if you go to the link in the show notes.
Yeah, very, very cool, Ryan. And I think probably something that would have been really helpful for us early on too. When we first started, we didn't even interview people. We were just carrying it ourselves. And I think we were missing a great opportunity to do a lot of good and bring a lot of impact into people's lives until we started bringing guests on. So really pumped that you got that out there. So any of our listeners even considering breaking into the content world where they're building out their own assets, great great deliverable to pick up. It's in the show notes. Ryan, thanks for joining us, man. I enjoyed the conversation, dude.
I think I could go like another 2 hours with you guys. Like, you guys are the best. This is awesome. Thank you for having me. I had a lot of fun, and yeah, just make sure to connect with me if you're listening. I'm always down to talk to people as well. Get on a podcast. That's my game. So
you guys can fill in for us for the next few hours.
Let's do it.
Thanks, man.
Guys.
Thanks a lot, Ryan.
Anytime.
Man, I love that dude went ahead and did a little rap on our podcast. That's a first for us.
I was going to warn him because I had a feeling you were going to go there. You didn't make him howl, so I guess he was lucky in that sense. Shout out to Thomas.
You know what? Yeah. Over at Coyote, shout out to Thomas. He was a good sport, man. I kind of I should make people do random stuff every time. It's something to be said about it.
I'll just make sure I put that into the contract so that they don't bail on us last second after they hear you say that. Yeah, we're good.
Hey, for those of you listening, be aware, every time we have a guest come on, I ask them up front, is there anything off limits? Is there anything I can't do or say or ask you about? And the answer, like wholeheartedly, I think one time we've had somebody say, oh yeah, don't talk about cats or something. It's like something totally, like really have an issue with cats. Can't talk about them. Anything else is good.
And, I'm assuming they're not thinking that you're going to ask them about howling or rapping. Well, this one made a little more sense, but yeah, I could see people have to think this a little bit better. It's their own fault for not thinking about that, though. We got them.
Clearly, not on us.
So speaking of clearly, one of the big pieces that I took away was the conversation around finding clarity, and then the piece behind it about the consistency, right? And if think about it, is like almost a loop. So you want to find that clarity, and then you want to test it with the consistency, because that consistency also gives you clarity. So if you think about it that way, it's just a loop of getting that clarity, being consistent to test it, and then that gives you more clarity if you're doing the right thing. So I thought that was a great piece that came out through Ryan.
Yeah, an easy conversation with a lot of just real good takeaways. Really, like there's just a lot that he said that really kind of stood out to me. I love the fact that he ritualizes his mornings and he's really structured with his time. I love the fact that he just took something that he's passionate about and building a business, and he said, I can do more, and let me go explore something else and experiment with something else and see how it goes. And voila, all of a sudden, 6 months later, he's got a thriving business on the podcast side where he's helping people create content, make a difference, and impact other people's lives. Absolutely what we love to see in the EML and the Be Rich mindset. I mean, it's all about helping other people, inspiring greatness, rising up in what you do, and really just good dude.
Yeah, all around great time, great messaging, and I blew his mind. So then that's awesome too.
Yeah. I think I heard you invite him back already. Not before he blew your mind, but afterwards you were like, oh yeah, come on back.
We might actually have that conversation, because we did talk about, have we done the interviews by ourselves? So that might be something coming up, the doctor and Sully minus JB.
All right. Whatever. I can understand when I'm a third wheel. I get it. It's okay. My ego's not bruised and battered. I'm not going to go cry or drink myself to sleep or, whatever. Asshole.
It would not be the same without JB. We know that.
Hey, you know what? Really cool conversation. If you are trying to connect with Sully, he is in the lab. You can hit him up. We are going to probably drop his Spotify so you guys can all listen in to him if you want to, and hear some of the stuff he creates on the musical side as well. And for those of you who have not yet joined the EML, get your asses over there. Join the EML. If you haven't subscribed, liked, and followed what we're doing here, go ahead and do it and give us a 5-star review while you're doing it. We could use your help, please.
And of course, as always, you can find us on all our social media links at JB and the Doctor, or on our website at jbandthedoctor.com. Check it out.
That's it. We'll see you later, rock stars. Have a good one.
Peace out, yo.